Hello, sir.
Yes.
Start.
Uh, Actually, we are expecting 400 plus participants. Still, they are joining, but we can start because we can't wait. We can't keep awaited the speaker. Huh? So we can start.
Okay. Hello and good morning to all. Myself, Dr. Neelam Kondvilkar, on behalf of the Center for Advanced Agriculture Science and Technology for Climate Smart Agriculture and Water Management, Mahatma Phule Krishi Vidyapit Rahuri, Maharashtra, India, welcome you all in the international training on perspectives of present and future weed research under climate smart agriculture. It's a seventh session of this training. On this occasion, I would like to welcome our guest and keynote speaker and eminent scientist of the world in the area of weed science, Dr. Nimal Chandrasena, principal ecologist and consultant at Nature Consulting Australia and former associate professor weed science, Department of Botany, University of Colombo, Sri Lanka. Welcome you, sir. I would also
Thank.
welcome Dr. Babu Saheb Bhakre, sir, Head Department of Soil Science and Agricultural Chemistry, MPKV Rahuri, and Organizing Secretary of this international training. Welcome to Dr. U.S. Surve, sir, Professor, Department of Agronomy, and member CAST CSWM, MPKV Rahuri, and Joint Organizing Secretary of this training. Welcome to all the participants from across the world from different 20 countries, students, faculties, scientists, farmers, CAST team members, research associates, and program coordinators. Welcome you again. Now, I would request to Dr. U.S. Surve, sir, Joint Organizing Secretary, to welcome and introduce today's guest. Sir, please.
Very good morning, friends. Today is the last day and the seventh session of this international training program on perspectives of the present and future weed management research under climate smart agriculture. And for this session, our expert is Dr. Nimal Chandrasena. He is currently as a principal ecologist, consultant at Nature Consulting Limited in Australia, and who is delivering the lecture on the topic, Do Not Deride the Humble Weed, Focus on Utilization of Weed as a Bioresource. So this is very important topic, and if you see, during last 3 days, we have discussed about the different parasitic weeds, biological control of the weeds, then weed management in the different crops. And today's topic, bioresource is there. You have to you have to use that weed properly as a bioresource, especially the whatever the aligned weeds are there. Water hyacinth is there, parthenium is there. It's having the role, especially on the biogas production, bioethanol, biomethanol production is there. Good quality of the compost preparation is there. So on that basis, sir is focusing on the such type of the topic, and so for that, sir has held the different position. I am giving the brief introduction about the Dr. Nimal Chandrasena, sir. He has held the different many consulting positions in last 26 years, including the senior role at GHD Limited, a global environment consultancy, and EcoWise Australia, and the Sydney Water Corporation. His primary interests are in weed biology, ecology, and management, with a focus on utilization of Weedy taxa as a bioresources. He was the former associate professor of botany, University of Colombo, Sri Lanka, and left Sri Lanka in late 1993 to domicile in the Australia. Dr. Nimal Chandrasena obtained his PhD in weed science in 1983 from the School of Plant Biology, University of North Wales, Bangor, UK. His doctorate was on topic studies on the biological activity of seizure of butyl, a collaborative project between the University of North Wales and ICT Gillard Hill Laboratory. Now we can call it as Syngenta, UK. Sir has taught the Advanced Ecology course, conducted the first Master of Science degree program in the weed science in Sri Lanka at University of Colombo, 1989 to 1992. He also founded the Weed Science Society of Sri Lanka in 1990, drawing together academics, industry, and researchers from various organizations, and served as its founding general secretary until 1993. In 2010, he became the general secretary of the Asian Pacific Weed Science Society, that is APWSS, and served until 2012. After which he has been the executive committee as the society editor. In 2019, the editor-in-chief, and Dr. Nimal Chandrasena was instrumental in launching the website, that is the Asian Pacific Weed Science Society, the official journal Weeds, as on online or the open access. And so today we can say that really this training becomes the international, because not only the foreign participants are there, but sir is also delivering the lecture from Australia. So definitely this lecture will be fruitful to all of us. This is the again new topic, and so I request Dr. Nimal Chandrasena sir to share the screen and start the presentation.
Before Nimal Chandrasena starts his presentation, I welcome him as the organizing secretary of this training program. I welcome Dr. Nimal Chandrasena, and also the earlier speakers who were there. They are also participating in this particular training program. Actually, this was the topic suggested by Dr. Nimal Chandrasena, and we readily accepted that, because as a soil scientist, what I see that all the weeds, they take up some nutrients, and those nutrients can also be of some use to the other plants if they are taken up in a right sense. And that's why the use, and particularly the bioresources of the weeds, that can be of great use. So we can know more about that today from Nimal Chandrasena. And he being the chief editor of the Journal of Weeds, so he has the latest knowledge of all the weed science. So he is a very pertinent person to give the details about the weed sciences as well as the bioresources that can be done from the weeds. So I welcome you, sir, and request you to please share your screen and start your presentation. All are waiting for your presentation, please. Thank you very much.
Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Yes,
Make it slideshow.
Okay. Ready to go?
Right.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Bakare and others for that introduction. Well, I'm very pleased to be here. Great pleasure to be involved, at least from Australia, from Perth. So I'm 2.5 hours ahead of you. So it's early afternoon for me. Well, and I requested when Dr. Rohit asked me to get involved, I thought a little bit, I was a little bit concerned about it because of the shortness of time. It was sounded like there wasn't a lot of time to get ready, and I therefore requested that I speak last, giving me more time because I'm very busy with other things in life. So, and then I chose this topic, guessing what the others might say. And I haven't been disappointed. I have listened to the other speakers, and I've actually logged in and listened to them while they speak, or I have gone to the YouTube and followed the gist of what they're saying. So I do have an idea. The training course's title, I must say, is excellent. That means to perspectives of present and future weed research under climate smart agriculture. Superb topic. Why? Because these words are very important. Perspectives mean it gives you the freedom to exchange ideas rather than dogmatically following what the general trends are. So in that sense, it is good. Present and future weed research, those words actually mean what is actually happening now and perhaps a glimpse at the future. Can you hear me, please, everybody? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay. And under climate smart agriculture. So thanks for the organizers, the university in Rahuri. So my presentation is actually to bring this home in some way. Connect weeds with climate smart agriculture. So because global warming is changing the planet, both plants and animals are changing. And can we relate the weeds to what is happening around us and what is expected of us, which is climate smart agriculture. So I will spend a bit of time explaining what that is and can weeds help in this adaptation to climate change. One thing I want to point out at the outset is a great deal is known about these plants called weeds, which are actually colonizing taxa. I will go into that in a minute. Perhaps we need to stop thinking more research is needed to understand them, because I take the position that we do understand them. Are we ready to apply the knowledge that we have, integrated weed management or otherwise? That is a central question. But people keep starting their research articles saying to me, more research is needed to understand these things. We do understand them. Believe me, 70 years of research in weed science, we do understand them. Can we integrate new paradigms though? That's another thing, another question. Utilization, which is relatively new, societal benefits from these colonizing species. Now those are new ideas. Whether the weed science as a formidable discipline that it is at the moment can change depends on how hard we push. And I am one of those who's pushing for that. How do weeds then fit into climate smart agriculture? Do we continue with search and destroy missions as we appear to be involved in, or do we seek some kind of a coexistence? Pause and think about the world. Do weeds give us a cue to think about the world and nature in particular? Those are some questions that I will be asking. What is climate smart agriculture? I didn't quite find that explained by previous speakers. I could be wrong though, right? Could be slightly wrong, but I don't think that they tackled it very well. So indulge me for a minute. Climate smart agriculture, CSA, is an approach to guide the management of agriculture in the era of climate change. If other speakers have said this before, please bear with me. Repetition is not a crime. The concept itself was first launched in 2009. Since then, it has been reshaped through various consultations with different countries and stakeholder groups. It aims to provide a globally applicable set of principles to manage agriculture for food security under climate change. Rather narrow in some sense, broad in some other senses. Only agriculture, weeds and agriculture. But weeds are far beyond agriculture. But let's go back to climate smart agriculture. It provides a basis for policy support and recommendations by multilateral organizations such as UN and FAO. The World Bank, the Asia Bank is wanting a policy framework to fund research. And that's where this new policy direction comes from. Adaptation to climate change and mitigation are both inbuilt into this policy position. World needs to do something. We all agree on that. But some cynic might say, are we really reinventing the wheel? If you thought very hard about the actual policies and principles and practices, it sounds a little bit like reinventing the wheel. It's a rebranding of what we've known for a long, long time. Some may agree, some may disagree, but I'm pretty sure of my position. Okay, so the FAO definition, which came out in 2010, was agriculture. Climate smart agriculture is agriculture that sustainably increases productivity, resilience to climate change, reduces or removes greenhouse gases, that's mitigation, and enhances the achievement of national food security and development goals. That's what climate smart agriculture is. So it talks about resilience. Resilience is a word that C.S. Hollings brought into science in 1970, 50 years ago. So the old man is dead now, and his word is used everywhere in politics and whatnot. Something called resilience, all of a sudden, before 1970, we didn't even hear about it. Then there is that book that you are looking at there, Climate Smart Agriculture Source Book, which is available for everyone to read. FAO, the website is given. I had a look again. Weeds are mentioned only 13 times, but only as potential problems, like crop, along with crop pests, referenced back to management through cultural practices, conservation agriculture, nutrient cycling, weeds and nutrients, saving soil moisture, and then somewhere else, herbicide resistance development due to overuse of herbicides. Thankfully, weeds have not been blamed for biodiversity losses or excessively crop losses. That is a relief for someone like me to see. So climate smart agriculture, do not read it as weed management. It is, as this training course is saying, is weed management under climate smart agriculture. Very small component, believe me. The CSA itself has been heavily criticized in the last 10 years. It's called greenwashing, but I don't agree with that. Greenwashing of something means a product or something that the merchants, like hotels, hospitality industry and whatnot, they started greenwashing things, saying, okay, if you reuse your towels, you are saving the world. Don't use too much soap and all of that, and green label in various products. That's greenwashing. This is not greenwashing. It is an actual improvement or rebranding, I would say. Like I said, it arose in 2009, but it arose out of IPCC's 2008 report. I think it's a fourth report, which talked about, did the actual calculations of greenhouse gas emissions and mitigation from agriculture. The paper is right at the bottom of that slide, Smith et al., Greenhouse Gas Mitigation in Agriculture. You can download, it's freely available. And based on that, the 2009 Climate Smart Agriculture began. The policy position was a response to this paper and a response for the world to do something. And like I said, it needs activities that really brought the greatest economic potential for restoring the cultivated organic soils, cropland management, grazing land management, restoration of degraded lands, rice cultivation management, livestock management, sequestration of carbon in agricultural soils, crop residues, perennial crops, promotion of perennial crops. These are the things that actually brought the highest benefits in the modeling exercise for both mitigation and adaptation. This is where it all starts. Okay, so that's what climate smart agriculture is. But some of these words go back a long, long way, more than 50 years. But a new focus is now, so that since 2009 until about 2019, about 10 years, there were controversies. CSA wasn't easily accepted by certain parties in the world. The criticism was mainly coming from India and some other countries, China too, developing countries, which said, this is pushing too much on the poor farmer who has to now sequester carbon in his farmlands and so on and so forth. That's one of the arguments, but there are some others as well, less important. But it wasn't easily accepted. The focus nowadays is changing a little bit to a more balanced, sensible approach. The focus is on enhancing and restoring holistic, regenerative, resilient systems. Very simple terms. It's not sustainable agriculture. It is regenerative agriculture. Sustainable agriculture is something that you can, okay, the word implicit or explicit is in that is sustainable, something that can be maintained over a long period. Regenerative agriculture is something else. Regenerative means you are taking something away from agricultural lands, deletion. Now you've got to put something back, addition. So deletions and additions so that the agricultural land does not degrade over a period of time. In fact, it should regenerate. So you can easily see the connection to colonizing species like weeds. Quite easy. Land is remediated back by strong colonizing plants, not slow growing plants, not your crop plants. So one can, weed scientists like us, weed ecologists, can easily see the connection. And it must then support functional ecosystem processes and healthy organic soils capable of producing a full suite of ecosystem services. Now, what are they? They were defined about 20, 25 years ago. Various kinds of nutrient cycles. Who operates them? Microorganisms, chemical transformations, biological transformations, those sorts of gaseous exchange and all that, nutrient cycles. Ecologists know that, botanists know that, agriculturists also know that. What processes will they, how can they be supported? And in the meantime, it is very good to capture some carbon and sequestrate while improving the soil water retention. So look, all of this is like reinventing the wheel, as it were, because we knew all of this. For more than 50 years, I knew these things. So I'm saying many people knew these things. There, and you can see there in that third bullet point, as such, climate change mitigation adaptation are incidental to a larger enterprise that employs a systems approach. I don't know why they said incidental. I think it is very direct effect of a systems approach. When did we hear about systems approaches? More than 30 years, maybe 30 to 40 years ago, in managing landscapes and communities. So broadly, what I'm saying is the paper there down below, Gosnell et al., transformational adaptations on the farm, processes of change and persistence in transition to climate smart regenerative agriculture. Again, available for downloading. Have a look at it. So broadly, what I'm saying is I'm an optimist. I'm not a cynic. I think it's a rebranding. Climate smart agriculture is a rebranding of many things that agricultural ecologists or weed ecologists knew for a long time. As far as we are concerned, all animals, including humans, depend on plants around them. So climate smart agriculture is really regenerative agriculture, building resilience into functioning ecosystems. You can't manage the system without understanding what ecosystem processes are. So it's actually redressing the damage that humans have themselves caused over a long period of time. So having said that, it's taken me about 10 or 12 minutes. Let's talk about weeds. Now, weeds interact with humans in many ways, in many aspects. And the environment, urban, rural, wherever you live, it affects sustainable ecosystems, rivers, catchments, urban ecosystems, agriculture. It's the easy one for you. Fisheries, because of waterways, livelihoods of people, again. And weeds are impacting on, or weeds are affected by climate change, not the other way around, but they're interacting with many aspects of our life. And that has an effect on the people's attitudes towards weeds. And the way we look at weeds is that we generally know they reduce agricultural production, they reduce quality, quantity, and all of that. Easy. They add to production costs. Farmers hate them, people hate them. Weed control costs are unbearable sometimes. They're negative effects. Environmental impacts, a little bit more difficult to prove. Reduced biodiversity, displays in native plants. Very hard to prove those. The negative impacts of waterways, quite easy. Thorny plants, yes, they do damage. Poisonous plants, yes. Taints milk, yes. Allergies, skin rashes, think about parthenium. All of that is easy to prove. So all of that has resulted in what? They've been called garden thugs, damned weeds, evildoers, and all of these insulting and disparaging terms used against weeds. What about the positive impacts? Are we talking, those discussions are very muted. Okay, let's go back a little bit to the history to show that these have not evolved overnight. Our understanding goes back at least 55 years, if not 60. And I talked about it in Hyderabad a few years ago. It all goes back, at least the ecological understanding goes back to this big symposium, which was held in California in 1964, February. The book came out a year later, edited by George Baker and Ledyard Stebbins. These are absolute giants who showed us the way. So it brought together not just these two, but many, many other giants at that time. And the book that changed the world, weed science, is this one, because many people will know, would have heard about Baker's ideal weed and all those characteristics. There is the book, that's my copy. There are still plenty of copies in the world floating around. And it's in chapter 8, page 164 or something, what is called the ideal weed, because George Baker defined what would characterize a weed. And let's look at some of those characteristics. And some of them apply to annual weeds, others apply to the perennial weeds. No need to go into any of these other classifications and characteristics. You just have to understand what characterizes these plants. No special environmental requirements for germination. Discontinuous germination. That means their seeds are not going to grow all of them at the same time. Great longevity of seed in the soil. Rapid seedling growth when they start growing. Early flowering. Relatively short vegetative state. They will go into flowering quick. Continuous seed production once they start producing. Self-compatible, but not obligatorily. They're mostly self-compatible. So they're not outbreeding most of the time, 99% of the time inbreeding. But when cross-pollinated, non-specialized agents are involved. They don't need this bee or this bird or that ant. Wind dispersed most of the time. Very high seed output in favorable environments, but some seeds under even the toughest conditions. So a lot of plasticity in that sense. So that's George Baker and his characterization. Special adaptations for long distance or short distance dispersal. Various kinds of gimmicks. If a perennial, vigorous reproduction, brittleness of the rhizomes, combs, bulbs, whatever, they have to break to regenerate from those plants. And ability to compete with special means, rosette form, choking growth, allelochemicals, various kinds of things. So those are 11 or 12 characteristics that define what they are. So please don't tell everyone you know and understand botanically it is a category. Ecologically, it is a category. Let's just say what are weeds, plants out of place and all this kind of stuff. No, they are a definite, distinct category. They are pioneering plants, plants that have certain attributes to achieve a certain outcome. They are colonizers. And Richard Levantine, the second photograph there, says very clearly, he would have effective dispersal mechanisms, high somatic plasticity, high interspecific competitive ability, and the greatest degree of all three would be a really successful colonizer. Levantine is still alive, 91, 92 years old. Baker has passed away. And the third gentleman, Ernest Mayr, big giant at Harvard, evolutionary biologists. These are the guys who explained it. And as Ernest Mayr is clearly saying, except for a few endemics, every species is a colonizer because it would not have the range it has if it had not spread there by range expansion or colonization from its place of origin. Think about humans. Humans would not have been successful if we did not move out of Africa. So he's alluding to the fact that humans are weeds in many ways. I'll come to that in a minute. But this understanding has been there for a very long time. This is where weed science should start. This is where your curricula must change. I've done that in Sri Lanka, but I'm not too sure whether they carried it on or not. But we did change the curricula in that sense. Okay, I put this slide about Aristotle, Theophrastus, Pliny the Elder, and Discouraged 2000 to 300 years ago, nearly 3,400 years ago, 2,400 years ago. These guys talked about weeds, but not using the word weeds. All of their articles in Greek and Latin are available in English. If you read them, they are referring to wild things, wild plants, herbaceous plants, shrubs, woody shrubs. All of these terms are there 2,300 years ago. So as if, you know, they knew what they were talking about. Only thing, they never derided a single plant. Come back to your India. The most of my audience or listening audience is Indian. You would understand these things. Charaka Samhita is Ayurveda, the basic Bible, Susuta, which is a surgery book, and then various other books. They are all talking about herbs. Not the word weed is simply not there, right? So we talk about wild things and weeds. Most of the current weeds are in these books. You would be very surprised. You can easily do a little project on number of species that are today current weeds, which are in these books. Okay, so what the point I want to make is, we've known this for a long time. But what about these current attitudes? We have various kinds of attitudes. We have wars on weeds, right? Because we are scared. The word is used to animals to be culled, and very unkindly the word weeds was applied to sickly spindle people for about 200 to 300 years, maybe even more. Down, I think about 500 to 600 years, when Shakespeare's time, we call sick people weeds to be removed from society. Then 200, 300 years of warfare and everything, Napoleonic wars and whatnot. After that, in the 1800s, the word was applied to tobacco, after the Spanish brought it along. Then 1900, the word is applied to cannabis. But these are the interesting points only. Weeds are everywhere, as some Indians have been telling me they are everywhere. What do you do about it? So plants become weeds only when they obstruct our plans or our tidy maps of the world. If you have no such plans or maps, they can appear as innocents without any stigma or blame. Think about it. I didn't make that statement, someone else did, but it is true. You know, we clean our gardens, we clean various sorts of things because we want everything to be tidy. But what is this? What's all these depictions of weeds as taking over the world, taking over cities and all that? It's a scare campaign. But there are some good books too. There's Richard Maybe's 2010 book, which is in defense of weeds. Okay, so definitions, again, I'm not going into details. Words like out of place, plants growing where we don't want it, all of that is really useless stuff that we should avoid. We should go with the ecological and scientific understanding, certainly for a training course like this. But it is good to understand there are other people refer to or have experienced different things, and they come out with various definitions. For example, the middle one, the naturalist, very sympathetic, plant whose virtues have not yet been discovered, Ralph Waldo Emerson. And another one says weeds are virtuous plants. So, but we know ecologically and botanically they are colonizing species, they are pioneers of secondary succession, opportunistic species that follow human disturbances. And these two guys, Arthur Hugh Bunting and Baker, have to be commended for really nailing it. A plant is a weed when its population grows entirely or predominantly in situations markedly disturbed by man. Don't even worry about natural disturbances and these species. They're mostly, they occur in situations disturbed by man. And man's role in the evolution further is also very clear, the linkage, and therefore man's culpability in spreading them is also very, very clear. The next point I want to drive is Jack Harlan's point. If the word weed is taken to mean a species or a race which is adapted to human disturbances, then who is the greatest weed in the world? Humans are the greatest weed in the world. We are the ones who thrive best under human modified environments. Not a difficult concept. It's absolutely hitting it the nail on the head. Most agricultural weeds are relatives of crops. They share the same origin, and they are our shadow. They travel with us. And isn't this interesting? We should look at this. Look at the dandelion on the left. 18% of our genes, human genes, are dandelion's genes. 28.6% are yeast genes, are human genes. Fruit fly 44%, mouse 92%, and with chimp we share 98% of our genes. And the plants and human connection was worked out with the Arabidopsis thaliana, tail cress, which is a weed. So we are very related. Our ancestors moved away from each other 1 billion years ago, that's all. Were otherwise very related. What does this understanding help us though? Weeds and humans. So I'm interested in pursuing this point a little bit. Weeds have very high genetic variation. Humans, very low genetic variation. All races are 99.9% similar. Weeds have very high fecundity all the time. Clonal species, vegetatively reproducing, unlimited capacity. Humans, fecundity is limited, but relatively high. We can go up to about 20, 30 children per mother, but the average is, as you know, 2 to 3. Weeds have extraordinary capacity to adapt to environmental extremes through heritable characteristics. They're all in their genes. Humans also can adapt to extreme environments, but only through inventions, clothes, shelters. Then weeds can have the ability to withstand extreme environments through propagule dispersal, quickly disperse, rapidly colonize vacant niches. Humans withstand environmental extremes through dispersal. Again, why? Immigrate or emigrate, go away. So that's what we do. Weeds are aggressive competitors, but very efficient at niche differentiation, resource sharing, mimicry, plasticity, avoidance of conflicts and all that. Humans, aggressive competitors, but often winner takes all, violent conflicts. So we do have some similarities and differences, but does this understanding help us? The other point, very quickly, is this war metaphor that you are hearing about, and I think the word war was used a couple of times in the presentation. We don't have a war. That's all ridiculous nonsense. We don't have aliens here. Very bad term in the world. There are no aliens. Weeds are not aliens. The word IAS, and India has its chapter of IAS, is a concocted misnomer. Is designed to mislead the gullible. Are we gullible to fall for that? Colonizing taxa will never take over the world. There is no planet of weeds, as some books say, or a feral future for the planet. No. Words like invasion, war, aliens are used to invoke fear and get more funding. That's what it does. The best war strategy is not to go to war with weeds or seek peaceful coexistence. Middle path strategies, perhaps, like Lord Buddha said. Fear is the key here. And all of this began with Charles Elton's book, which some of you know, The Ecology of Invasions, written in 1948, published probably in 51. He only had the word invaders in chapter 1. All other 8 or 9 chapters, I have the book in Sydney, I don't have it here in Perth. All other chapters do not talk about invaders or invasions. They only talk about ecological explosions. But the book has been used as the landmark to launch something called invasion biology. Some of you know, invasive species management and all that. If you want to go down that path, please do so. But I am not one of those. Aliens and Weeds, the second book written by the second gentleman, Edward Salisbury, popularized the term. He was scared of post-war European immigrants rushing to Britain. But I traced the term back to the herbarium specimen sheets at Kew Herbarium. 250 years ago, people in the herbarium sheets noted on the side when they were sending specimens to Linnaeus and others, alien, meaning it wasn't endemic, but it's from somewhere else. So These words have powerful effects on societies. And this newest thing, I don't want to mention people here, guilty until proven innocent is an attitude that is an insult to plants. It is an insult to human intelligence. How can you say a plant is guilty until proven innocent? No way in the world. So all of this was given some authority by, unfortunately, Convention of Biodiversity in 1992, because it used the term. But as I said, you can continue on that path or recognize the worth of these plants. And I have another new paradigm: control weeds only to the extent necessary. Again, fear is the key here, which is being used. Remember George Bush and the weapons of mass destruction that he used in Iraq? Here the WMDs are actually herbicides, arsenal of herbicides which are ready to be deployed against weeds and everything. Okay, beneficial effects of weeds. I want to come back quickly to this, and these bullet points show you some values of weeds. Biodiversity values, they are part of wild nature, and they are weedy relatives of crops. Unbelievable similarities with many of the world's crops. Ecosystem services, some people understand, others don't. Agro-ecological values, many people understand. Soil improvement, moisture retention, and all that. Edible weeds, people understand easily. Medicinal plants, easy to understand. Pharmacological compounds, allelochemicals from them. Use of aquatic plants in water quality improvement. Raw materials for industry, land remediation, ecological restoration. Which can do it? Only colonizer species can remediate land. Mine site rehabilitation, compost and vermicompost. Indians are champions of it. They use it all the time. Sushil Kumar leads all of that kind of work. You guys know these things. Fodder for animals. So broadly, they provide all sorts of benefits to our natural ecosystems. If you read through these things, they are primary producers. Very simple. Primary producers. They support pollinators. They are genes for crops. They are also future crops. Food for birds and animals. Many examples in the literature of keystone species in ecological processes. The moment you take one of these off, then it takes years for something else to take its place. Lantana is a classic example of that. Birds, weeds, and animals appear to have evolved very strong evolutionary relationships over a long period. Other things are easy: leaf litter, carbohydrates, secretions that drive microbial processes, deterrent compounds, nutrients, organic matter. They offer genetic variation in the natural environment. So there is no doubt that if you start eating weeds, edible weeds, that societies will benefit. A number of books have been written. They, as you can see, I put a few to draw your attention to. And how much you eat depends on how long we have had contact with them. They are not just poor man's food anymore. They are culinary delights in not just subsistence food. But can we design agro-ecosystems incorporating edible weeds beyond the permaculture movement? That is a question. Sustainable ecosystems, profit for farming, can we prove these actually in the fields and in our villages and rural settings? Perhaps we need to integrate with ethnobotany as a science. And I've had the opportunity to go to Korea and Japan and give some lectures. These are some from Korea. Edible plants all the way back, beautiful luxury items. This is Japan, and they've gone back to actually documenting famine weeds, because Japan is like that, a country that never forgets its past, you know that, right? So they've gone back, and some of their products demonstrate that they've gone back to famine periods 200, 300 years ago, how people survived, and weeds are the most single dominant component in those lists. Okay, just to prove the point that weeds have nutritional value, these data are very hard to come by. The FAO data are very outdated. But look at some of these edible weed species and energy, protein, fats, carbohydrate contents versus the three down below in yellow, asparagus, spinach, and cabbage, just as benchmarks. Don't worry too much about the numbers, but more than 3 to 4 times value, nutritionally in every sense in those weeds compared with the more popular, more palatable herbage vegetables that you eat. No doubt about that. So there are issues with edible weeds, though. Many books promote these things. They accumulate heavy metals and other pollutants. People who forsake, they avoid those things. People know that. Some people are allergic, so food safety is a critical issue. Eat everything in moderation is the principle. Market gardens are being designed these days, community gardens with edible weeds. So these are trends that are happening at the moment. Medicinal weeds, very easy for my listening audience to understand. Most developing countries have traditional medicinal systems. They all depend on these things. The pharmacopoeias of Mexico, the Amerindia, China, and Ayurveda in India, all are dominated by weeds. But again, the critical issue is, can we design agro-ecosystems incorporating some of these so that rural households cultivate 2 to 5 of the most important ones, and we have a supply chain that gives them some money. That's the challenge. So here are some examples. Catharanthus roseus, which all of you know, probably. Vinblastine, vincristine, and many others are cancer drugs used tons and tons of it every day in the world. Belladonna plant used all the time as a source of atropine for your eye surgery. Centella asiatica, everybody knows pennywort. All of those asiacides, brahmacide, brahminoside, all of those are very important in skincare products. Angel's trumpet datura for, again, source of alkaloid scopolamine. Digitalis, foxglove, they save our life. Digoxin, digitalin, all of those are in the paramedics medical kit. So they save lives, and they're all obtained from weeds. One big one is artemisinin, Nobel Prize winner in 2015. This Japanese lady on the third one on the right. Artemisinin comes from a weed, a big weed, Artemisia annua, sweet wormwood, and it is the primary molecule that is in the first and second lines of treatment for malaria. And she won, and I think she passed away last year or year before, but a technician in Japan who discovered it. Very, very important, great example of a weed that has global impact. There are many other examples, right? Yeah, here are some of them: atropine, mimosine, solanidine, and from Phragmites australis, this algal control chemical. From lantana down below, from water hyacinth also we get a few compounds. So most of these come from the allelochemicals, different chemicals obtained from weeds. But many of these break down easily. So if people think that Parthenium can be extracted and it gives you a botanical herbicide, no, Parthenium breaks down too fast. That's another story. So some other chemicals, tegetinine from marigolds, leptospermone, and then leptospermone led to the other two, mesotrione and trembotrione. These two are actually leptospermone similar compounds, and they're already in the market. As you can see, Explorer is from mesotrione and trembotrione. They are both actual herbicides now based on this chemical from weeds. And then what about the last one, pelargonic acid from geranium species or pelargonium species? That has given rise to slasher, also in the market, quite expensive, but it's not coming from geranium or pelargonium anymore. It's been synthesized. But the original template for these discoveries came from weeds. It's also important to remember the phytoremediation potential of weeds. India leads, China leads phytoremediation, India and other countries follow. Many species are used for phytoremediation. The information is vast, 20 to 30 years, about 3 or 4 journals now concentrating on phytoremediation. Mine site rehabilitation, colonizing plants. I use them all the time. In my designs of constructed wetlands in Australia, I use typha, phragmites, even papyrus. In water hyacinth, I haven't used here, but I have analyzed for pollution removal. So like I said, more than 20 years now, vast amount of research. China leads and other countries follow. The mechanisms involved have been worked out. The best ones are cadmium hyperaccumulators. Others are still being developed. And they are being now used for military sites to remove benzene, toluene, xylene, BTXs, and volatile organics as well. So a vast field growing up very fast. The phytoremediation companies in the world will employ anyone who has a weed science PhD who works on these topics. What about very simple wetlands? All of you in India know these things, and in other countries too. Most of these things are done with water hyacinth or typha, cyperaceae, juncaceae, restunaceae, and grasses, poaceae. All are colonizing plants. One simple thing: if they can't grow fast, if they don't produce enough biomass, enough root mass, you can't use that. So basic principles: reed beds, floating wetlands, submerged or otherwise, they all use colonizing plants. What about this aspect, the production of biochar and other things using weed material? What about the biofuel crops? And again, India is in absolutely the right path with Jatropha, Salix, which is willow, Populus, poplar, eucalyptus. They all lead the way in the world as biofuel crops. There is Arundo, Miscanthus. Don't be afraid. Introduce them, manage them, get the best benefit out of them. They're not going to take over the world. If someone says so, that's nonsense, really. So they rebuild the soil, they sequester carbon at the same time, grow very fast, and you can harvest them for benefits. Broadly, weeds are shadows of men. So they're in one of my favorite slides. Constant and intimate companions of man throughout his history. We will know a lot about man, where he has been and what he has done if we follow weeds. So, but can we manage this relationship better? Change our attitudes? Can we learn how to skillfully integrate with nature? Can we be frugal? Can we be thrifty? Can we share resources? Do we know how to coexist with others? Share resources. Differentiate the niche. Don't go into conflicts. These are simple ideas, maybe philosophical ideas, but they have practical value. That's why I say we can learn from weeds. How to avoid conflicts, coexist. Don't ask for more. Remember Charles Dickens's book, Oliver Twist? Do not ask for more. So positive attitudes. Next time when you see a weed, don't start a war that you cannot win. So the way forward is to understand weeds, and way forward is to understand we have done enormous damage, destructive land use practices. We are culpable. Land clearing, monoculture cropping. We saw plenty of things about monoculture cropping, even in the presentations. Are we ready to go down that path? I don't think so. So India is ideally placed not to go down that path too much. Your land is fragmented, your land is small holdings. Africa, the same story. You don't have to follow everything Western. You must stop overgrazing. You must stop excessive livestock farming, which is the death of Australia, Canada, and US at the moment. You must not introduce species for short-term profit, but only think about long-term profit. And you must, what other additional information may help the weed management on farm level? We still need some information. There is no harm. What are the tolerable weeds? What are the beneficial weeds? What are the functional groups? Which ones do what tasks in the ecosystems? So can we? It's quite a challenge, but it starts with an attitude change. And I use this famous American cartoon from the 1950s. Yes, we can. Barack Obama used the same words in the last 10 years. Yes, we can do it. We only need to educate our next generation correctly. Our biggest problem is population. We can't afford to have an untenable relationship with plants. Climate change is forcing us to have a closer look. The pandemic that we are witnessing at the moment is only one frightful experience, hell of a lot more to come. So look at those numbers. India is going to be the most populated country in the world by the end of the century. Can we do something about it? China will be number 2, then 7 African countries will come together to be 3. So I don't think these are tenable. 9.5 billion by the end of the century, and certainly we need to develop better relationships with plants. But these things are critical to understand. Okay, what of the future? Expect more of the same. Shifts in weed floras, unreliable water supplies, resistance to herbicides is increasing, increase in C4 species. Don't have time to go into that. Seasonal and annual fluctuations in environment, including bushfires. The tropical belt doesn't have bushfires yet, but the temperate zone is getting bushfires. They have already started in Australia. Yesterday, the first fire started. It's not even the end of winter. Understand that, please. It's a hell of a worry. Yesterday, the first bushfire started for the year. Climate change affects us all. Rethinking and reducing our ecological footprint is a must. Everyone must do what they can. So I take a step back again. Strategic approach to weed management. This is what we've been teaching for, I'd say, 30, 40 years. Do these things. Assess the beneficial roles of weeds in ecosystem. More funding for weed ecology, justify why specific weed management actions are necessary, accept some levels of weed occurrence is inevitable, possibly desirable. Weed management is only one component of productive agriculture. Conduct weed risk assessments, proper risk assessment, not maligning of plant resources. I just picked a few key items in strategic approaches. Now, let me correct myself, about 20 years, I'd say, not 30. These came about 20 years, 1995, yeah, 25 now, I think. But holistic and integrated farm management, that certainly goes back 30 years. Water management, soil management, pest management, integrated biodiversity management may be a new one. That's why I have it separate in this little schematic. The other 3 were very much a part of IWIPM and IWM, 40 years old. So that's why I say some of the rebranding is stuff that you and I have done over a very long period. Our farmers have done for a very long period. Very easy for them to get back into that mode. Feed in the world. Can we do it? I'm into my last few slides. In the next 5 minutes, I'll be finishing. Now, feed in the world. Can we do it? Yes. Now, these are slides from Japan and Korea. Indoor farming, rooftop gardening, vertical farming, partially automated. Can those robots that we heard about yesterday do the harvesting, transplanting? I think it will be much more, let's say it'll also be useful. Hydroponics, year-round production, solar-based energy supplies, recycling all waste, urban agriculture, edible gardens, edible fences, cover crops. Some of our tropical villages do have them, but we need to go another step further in our urban environment. Green buildings, green industries, biomimicry, which is designs that mimic nature. Australia has started. Melbourne is well in advance of Sydney and other cities in this regard. And we need some money to do all of this. We need the IPL franchise money, kind of money poured into cricket. If Indians can pour some money into these kinds of green ventures, I think we will have some winners. Have a look at the last slide, which is the design winner about 5 years ago in Amsterdam. A building that has actually a vertical, 14, 15 story building that has cows grazing and coming down. It's like a car park, but it is pasture and cows. That's only a design. No one has built it yet. But who knows? The Dutch and the Danish might build it soon. So what is the global position? This is another problem that often our countries have. We do not connect very well to the global position. there is a global position in many of these things that we are talking about. The National Geographic had a 5-point plan in May 2014, which looked at thousands and thousands and thousands of stakeholders and took a world position to do 5 things to secure the food for the world. Freeze the agricultural footprint. That was number 1. Don't expand anymore. That's what it says. Grow more on the farms we've got. Use existing resources more efficiently. Shift diets. Go away from all this livestock farming and the indulgence in animal protein. Waste less, meaning save all crop residues, plow it back and that type of thing. So the details have to be read, but these are the 5 big hitting ones. EU policy then got nailed or based on some of those things. Now EU policy recognizes biodiversity management, less intensive farm management, reduce the area under cultivation, encourage or retain some colonizing species for benefit. Straight away, the policy says that. Look at the way, look at nature and mimic the nature. So what I want to say here is it's all in our head. It's all in our mind. Sorry. So back again. If we are at war with weeds, it's a reflection that we are really at war with ourselves. Not all weeds are bad all the time. Realize their worth, please. How do we live with them? But one lesson for weed scientists is you have to think beyond agriculture. Agriculture is not where you meet weeds. It's only one place where you meet weeds. But stop thinking war. Forget an unwinnable war. Communicate messages very freely and effectively. Every weed will tell you a story, and that is a story of human folly, really. So come back to more relevant things. Lots of books have been already written, awareness raising. I am writing a book myself. So international collaboration and funding. Center for Weeds as Bioresources. Will India lead? I wonder. Database of plant resources already there, database of weeds already there, useless material because they mislead you. More books on utilization of weeds, more research articles and reviews on that topic, more targeted research crop improvements with weedy genes, targeted training courses, influence curricula in the universities, use weed species to remediate land. All future PhD students should think about what they will do in weed science. Reevaluate the scientist attitudes, hold community events and farmer attitudes. These are the ones that we need to change the paradigm. Look at the number of books that have been written. They are wonderful books and people need to write more. Okay, I draw inspiration from 2 people. The Lord Buddha, we are what we think. All that we are arises out of our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world, the Buddha said. Mahatma said, a man is but the product of his thoughts. What he thinks, he becomes. He was mostly inspired by the Buddha. And he also said, it is better to walk alone than with a crowd going in the wrong direction. And you know how valuable Mahatma Gandhi is. So I am in the mode of saving the world. Sometimes I need a guiding hand, as the picture shows, the little lion cub looking at the lion father for a guiding hand. Weeds will show us how. Wisdom is knowing who to be and what to do in a given situation. Virtue is acting on that wisdom. To lighten up a little bit, here's something from India. Today's reality is really more degrees and less common sense. And also lots of humans, but less humanity. And another site that I used in India, I think, can the farmers really benefit from this IT revolution? Will it help to manage weeds? Will it help these poor farmers struggling with drought conditions? I wonder. The glyphosate tragedy, I want the last 3 slides, please bear with me. Glyphosate tragedy is a real tragedy. Overuse and abuse of a wonderful chemical. 95,000 lawsuits now, Monsanto, 10 billion to settle it last few months ago, 1.25 billion towards more research. So More studies are needed. Incredible chemical, but unfortunately abused with this thing called herbicide-tolerant crops. So individual countries will have to closely evaluate that. That's my advice to India. Many things to do in the farms before you need herbicide-tolerant crops is a broad, simple statement that I can make without getting into arguments. Many, many things to do to get right before that technology. Key messages: do not deride weeds, they are our allies. They are the glue that holds landscapes together. Ecological Red Cross, I would say, they're the first ones to come when you disturb the land. Look for every opportunity to utilize them for societal benefits. That should be your key driver. Promote eating whenever they can, when they're safe. Use them medicinally, use them in landscape rehabilitation, and all of those things. Cultivate biomass, reduce herbicide use to kill them, unless herbicides are an integral part of a targeted approach. Accept only the grants that seek multiple control approaches, including assessment of utilization potential. That's a message for your ICAR. Don't accept grants that go into herbicides straight away. You've got to justify why certain approaches are necessary. Don't rely on chemical companies to tell you how bad weeds are, because what to do about them, their business is to make money from their products. Leadership is an issue. No country is better to provide leadership than India and China, simply because they are the most populated and powerful. Attitudes must change, paradigms must change, and they must be supported and sponsored by government. Weed scientists must rally around utilization. So ask yourself, would you live in a world without weeds? I don't think so. I am not despairing. I live in optimism. I'm keeping my chin up. I don't expect, no one expected me to save the world. Otherwise, I would have been born wearing a cape and tights. Just doing the best I can. Have a look at our APWS's website. Start writing opinion pieces, perspectives, research articles, critical reviews of topics on weeds. Engage with others through the journal Weeds, which we have launched. Okay. Now, I just want to thank the final few words, Dr. Rohit, Dr. Sunil, and other colleagues at Rahuri who put it together. Dr. Bakari, the organizing secretary, who led the delivery of the program. The university for giving its leadership. I take my hat off to you for the training effort. Broadly, thank you all for listening. I have some success measures as well, what we call KPIs, key performance indicators. How many people have I inspired to rethink? How many will return to their offices to approach weed research differently? How many will scratch their heads? How many weed scientists listening will join APWSS, IWSS, the Indian Weed Science Society, or similar networks and societies to promote utilization of weeds? A new theme has to emerge. Be in touch with me. My addresses are not unknown. I am the editor-in-chief of the journal, and have a look at the journal on our website. Let's see how many people do this. That would be my personal KPI. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for a very informative lecture. Definitely, this lecture will help us to upgrade knowledge about the weed ecology. And today, I realize we cannot live without weeds, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Now we will move towards the some doubts and discussions, sir.
Yes, no problem.
Dr. Bhakre, sir.
Yeah.
Shall I go ahead, sir?
Okay, I'll give comments after the doubts and all this. Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Sir, one of our participants, the Abhishek Gawane, is asking about. We came across we are going to prepare the biochar from the weeds, but his question is related to the viability of the seeds, unburned seeds in biochar.
Don't understand the question. So what's the issue?
We are preparing the biochar from the weed. We can use the seed weed as a we can use weed for preparation of biochar.
Yes, weed
Hello.
biomass.
I'll just explain. What he is telling is we are advocating for the weeds to be utilized for biochar preparation. For
Yes.
biochar, isn't it? So what is the fate of those weeds that are used for the preparation of the biochar? What will be the fate of that weed that is also there in the biochar?
It's all converted by pyrolysis and various other things into pellets. So there are no weed seeds or contamination spread or any risk at all. Yeah, I mean the technology is all there. The Australians use it, with valuable trees. In fact, not with weeds. But the Americans and probably India too, and some other countries are using quite correctly mixed material. That's available. So there is no risk of spread at all. The technology is well established.
Next. Hello, Sunil. You can ask the next questions.
Yes, sir.
Questions, please ask.
Sir, actually, there is no question. All are giving the appreciation to this presentations.
No one wants to say anything.
Hello, are there any questions? If somebody wants to speak, you can be unmuted also. If somebody raises the hand, some from South African countries also, if they want to raise hand, they can ask some question. They can be unmuted. Yeah, definitely we can have a conversation with those people. Yeah, is there anybody?
Yes, sir. Ravi Kishan Soni, he's raised his hand.
Yeah, okay. Unmute him so that. Ravi Kishan? Yeah, you can ask, please. Hello.
Yes.
Ravi Kishan, you can, if you want, you can ask, please. Ethiopia, Cameroon, South Africa, Sri Lanka. Okay, if not, I think your lecture is well understood and there are no questions because, yeah, definitely it was a very brilliant lecture, I would say, and most enthusiastic people were there, what we saw, because today I came to know that why you said that my lecture should be at the last.
Yes.
Because all the 6 lectures are to one side, and yours is to the other side.
Yes.
Because what we heard for our last 3 days was the eradication of the weeds. So how to eradicate the weeds? How to eradicate the weeds with the help of drones and AIs and all those herbicides and weedicides and all those. Yeah, but today it was a quite different lecture which motivated the scientists and the students and the faculties particularly that we can't be only negative. We can have a positive thinking of weeds also.
Yes.
So
can you hear me, Dr. Bakare? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, okay.
So
yes, I mean the real test is real test is whether ICAR will pick up anything, and we have to push from Jabalpur. I think most of the research done is on weed control, very narrow focus.
Yeah, actually, sir,
we have to be engaged much more broadly than that.
Right. Actually, what you told is most of the weeds are also used as vegetables. Now, in this particular, this is a week. This is a week wherein in Maharashtra, let me tell you, let me clear it that MPKV, Mahatma Phule Agriculture University, is not in Gujarat, it is in Maharashtra. So in your first
Okay.
slide, you say you have written it in Gujarat, but it's in
Okay, sorry about
Maharashtra.
that.
Yeah, no, it's okay. But now in whole of the Maharashtra, there is a more celebration going on regarding the what you call as the local vegetables. Means ran bhaja, we call it ran bhaja, means the rural
Okay.
vegetables that are
Yes.
grown in the hilly areas, in the remote places. Those which are used as vegetables, they are being focused, and they, with the Department of Agriculture, they are being focused. Means
Yes.
up till now, till yesterday, what we are calling it as weeds, today we
Yes.
are calling it as vegetables.
That's right.
Yeah, so let me
Edible
focus on
weeds.
that. Yeah, let me focus on that, because whole of Maharashtra, this particular program of a week is going on, and the people from urban areas, they are now knowing, or they are getting known, that yes, these are also the weeds but can be utilized as vegetables, and which have got so much of the nutritious value.
Yes.
And after having so much of nutritious value, why they are being wasted? And that's why this program has been taken up by the government of Maharashtra, and it has been a wonderful program. The people are having so much of response to that. So
Yes.
I really appreciate you for taking pains to know that the history of weeds, particularly 55 years before, and even the yogas, and in that particular period, in Buddhist period and
Yeah.
all that, it was very nice that weeds are known not now, they are known from our ancestors, and those were actually used as vegetables in that particular period also. But over the time, they were left behind when the new cultures of vegetation and vegetables have come up, and
Yes.
those were left behind. But you have really focused it, and it was a wonderful lecture, sir. Thank you very much. It was
Yeah.
a thought-provoking. Actually, this word would be the fittest word for this your lecture. It's a thought-provoking lecture, because we have
Yeah.
to think again and again whether to destroy the weeds, or we have to rejuvenate the weed cultivation apart from our production, whatever it is. So thank you very much. If you want to say anything.
Yeah, I'm thankful for the opportunity. I do have a few concerns regarding taking part in these courses. This is, as I told Rohit, and I think I touched on this on an earlier occasion as well. These sorts of things need to be teased out a little bit more slower than the speed at which I went, right? So I had what 55 slides to get through in 60 minutes. So, and the first few slides connecting to climate smart agriculture, which didn't happen in the previous 6 lectures, I think I thought that I should fill that gap. And that introduced 4 or 5 slides this morning. You see, this is what happened. So people now can actually reflect back on it. Otherwise, I would be missing a point myself. I needed to connect weeds with climate smart agriculture. Where does it fit? Climate smart agriculture doesn't mean only weeds. So it's a hell of a lot of other things and a little bit of weeds, right? So, and if I take the sting out of weeds by saying what I said, you are left with very little to do in relation to weed management in climate smart agriculture. To be honest, you got to work with weeds rather than look to eradicate every little thing with a machine or whatever. So sustainability is one angle, regeneration is another angle. So, well, those are thoughts that my trepidation, my concern, anxiousness earlier was, have we given ourselves enough time? In a typical course, I would say 30 lectures to the contents of these 7 would stretch to 30 lectures, and then each one can do justice to their topic. So, and in a master's program, we'll be going into more detail. So, because it is laying the groundwork and actually giving time for people to actually think and respond. But very direct messages to, I will take it up with Sushil and others in Jabalpur as well. What are the opportunities for Jabalpur DWR to take on utilization as a theme?
Yeah.
So, those things are positive from my point of view. That's why I joined this. Right. So,
and of course, if you want to have the suggestions from this or conclusions of this particular training program, if you want to suggest to the Directorate of Weed Science, Jabalpur, we shall be advocating this your point to those people in the conclusions that yes, weedicides are not to be just eradicated. We have also, we can do that. We have also Dr. Vadatkar, the he is the Associate Dean, of course, of the PDKV Akola Engineering. So can we unmute Dr. Vadatkar if you want to say something about this lecture? Yeah, Dr. Vadatkar, sir?
Hi, sir.
Yeah, please, your comments. Dr. Vadatkar is the Dean of Agricultural Engineering College from PDKV Akola. So we will have his comments on this particularly. Yeah, sir.
Sir, this approach definitely it is interesting because we were thinking only in one direction. But there is other problem also. The other side also we have to see. Because of which we know we have seen up to 60 to 70% yield reduction is there on an average. In some crops it is more, in some crops it is less.
Yeah.
So that is also a thing. That also we have to think. We cannot say that we should keep all the weeds there in the field.
No,
already.
No, I didn't say that.
Not like that.
Can I comment?
Can
I comment?
Yeah.
Yes, sir, sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So yesterday also we saw many slides about weeds and whatnot. All if it is a weed infested field, if I am the agronomist or if I am the agricultural advisory officer, I will work with the farmer to get crop rotations going, get other things right. Because I will say to him, can you afford pendimethalin and all these other fancy things? Or would you rather have a couple of fallows and put beans and other kinds of things, reduce that? So you need weed science knowledge to be able to manipulate the system. After a year or two, tell me whether you need herbicides or not. That is the challenge from me. Therefore,
agreed.
All this Indian information about weed losses, I have read in Indian literature up to 100%. What a joke is that?
Yeah.
Who does that kind of farming? If the yield losses are 100%, who did the farming in that particular paddock? That's not farming.
Nobody will go. Right.
So that is not farming. It is illogical to report on some crops losses up to 100% weeds. You're growing something else, So it's wrong to even go down that path. That is illogical, irrational, conceiving of ideas and carrying out implementation of research. That's wrong. So we need to we have to have a good think about it before. That's why I say from now on, at least the research grants coming in should have the justifying clauses answered first before you get to the real proposal and the methodology and implementation. Australians started doing that. The no action option or what other alternative options about 20 years ago, before the actual project proposal. You got to address these other things. I think they learned it from the Americans. But there are good things that we have to learn from the Western, very hard-nosed approach to research grants that is so competitive. So I would like to see the Indians do the same. I can't advise the Chinese. I don't speak their language. So, but certainly, ICAR and other granting bodies should ask the researcher to justify a particular pathway.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vadatkar, sir.
Thank you.
You, Dr. Nimal, sir, for a very interesting lecture. Thank you very much. And I would request all the participants that in the afternoon at 4 o'clock, there is a validatory function. So I request and I welcome all of you for the validatory function, because in the validatory function, we shall be having our Honorable Vice Chancellor, we shall be having the nodal coordinator and the ex-director of the directorate, as well as the present directorate, director of the directorate from Jabalpur, Dr. P.K. Ghosh and S.K. Singh. They will be also there. So please be there in the afternoon at 4 o'clock. We shall be sharing you the link. And thank you very much, Dr. Nimal. Over to Neelam and Sunil for further announcements and vote of thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
I would like to thank you, our today's expert, Dr. Nimal Chandrasena, sir. I also thanks to all the staff, scientists, students, and farmers from India and abroad. I also thanks to Dr. B.D. Bhakre, sir, organizing secretary. I also thanks to Dr. U.S. Surve, sir, joint organizing secretary. Once again, I thank you very much, one and all here. I also request all the participants, please join in valedictory function. We are cordially invite all of you for valedictory function at 4 p.m.
So please join at 4 o'clock and see, please adjust your time, means the regular time of our lecture, which was held 3 days before, that is for the 3 days. Similarly, we have to come today also at 4 o'clock. So please join at 4 o'clock for the validatory function. We shall be gaining much more knowledge in that particular session also. And I also request Dr. Nimal, sir, to please be there for the validatory function.
Yes, I will be there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Shall we end the meeting, sir?
Yeah, definitely. Please.